And as I'm talking to you, I'm struck by the discipline that you have, which I imagine you were probably always a disciplined person. But you were what? You were established. You were with the Fleet Intelligence Pacific. What is that, and how did that set you up for success in writing, or did it?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. So I signed up for the Navy on a whim. I was really young when I graduated high school. I was 16. I had skipped a grade when I was younger. And I don't think it really benefited me well because I didn't really know what I wanted to do at 16. You know, everybody went to college. That's what you're supposed to do. So I went to college, but I didn't really go to class. So I failed out. And, you know, not a good
You were
plan to
at
follow.
college at 16 or at 17?
I graduated high school when I was 16. I turned 17 right when I started college. And yeah, so I didn't take it seriously. I failed out. My parents were like, we're done with you. So, I mean, with paying for college, that is, you know, not done with me.
Tough but fair, I guess. Wow.
So I drove by the recruiting office one day and on a whim, I went in and signed up. My dad had been in the Navy. So I thought, oh, this is something I can do. And I actually had a lot of fun in boot camp. I don't know a lot of people who say that, but I loved it. It was awesome. I actually got in trouble because I would laugh. I would laugh at these company commanders who were, you know, cursing at us and telling us vile things because to me, it was like theatrical. So I would laugh and I would get in trouble for laughing instead of crying. And I wanted to go in as a journalist, but they didn't have any openings. So I figured photography is the next best thing. So I went in as a photographer. I went to photo school down in Pensacola first. And that was fun because it was like old school photography, like on the reel in the dark room, right? That was great. Really got to learn some techniques. And then they sent me over to Pearl Harbor, which I didn't want to go to. I'm not a beach person. I wanted to go to Scotland. Okay. But
what
no.
makes Scotland superior to beaches and nice weather?
I know. Well, I'm not. I love seasons and I love rugged, mountainous lake, you know, landscapes. And, you know, I used to live in England and we used to go to Scotland and it's just so beautiful there. So that didn't happen. But everybody came to visit me when I was stationed in Hawaii, of course. And so I was stationed with FICPAC, Fleet Intelligence Center Pacific. I worked in the building with no windows. And I think I only had what was it? My security level, you know, it wasn't very high. And so when big security projects would come into the lab, the film lab, the one of us who didn't have the big secret clearance, we literally would have to go stay in the closet until the job had passed through and was on its way to somewhere else because we weren't supposed to have our eyes on it.
So you're in the closet while they're revealing the UFO footage that you would have seen if you could just come out of the closet.
Man, I wish there'd been UFO footage. No, I was actually processing film of like aerial photography of, you know, secret camps around the world that they were investigating. So that's what I was doing, which was still pretty cool. Yeah, so that was my job. And I would also take photos of like command ceremonies and things like that on the island. But I got islanditis. You know, you drive around 3 hours and you're back where you started from. It just wasn't for me. And funny enough, my son, who just turned 18, who did not get this idea from me, is now planning to go to Hawaii with his girlfriend for a gap year and then go to college there. So I said to him, I never wanted to go back there. Why are you doing this to me? You're going to be 5,000 miles away on an island. But you know what? Go have adventure. I created him. This is, you know, this is what my life is, adventure, you know, and so he's the same way. He's got his own business. He started his own business at 16, launched it last year and doing really well with it.
And he's got his own business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's called Spiffy Laces. Check it out. And he created his own designs of really cool laces. And he's got a private label deal. He's been selling at markets and online, doing really well. Yeah, he loves being an entrepreneur. I guess. What's that?
Where can esteemed audience go to find out more? SpiffyLaces.com? Or?
It's just SpiffyLaces.com. Like Spiffy. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. That's a young man that's got at least that much figured out. He
is. Yeah. He's so here, proud mama. There he is. Graduation picture. Joshua. He's a cutie. Little entrepreneur. I guess he gets it from his parents.
Got his own book series, headed to Hawaii for a gap year with his own business. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I got to let him go. You know, the worst case, I give him a ticket and he comes home, right?
Fair enough.
Yep.
I'm musing you. I'm thinking that there has to be somebody who's listening to this that's currently stationed in Antarctica or someplace miserable. Or maybe they live it there. I don't know. Someplace that they don't want to be, and they're hearing you, and they're like, "Oh my God, you were in Hawaii with all the beautiful beaches of the island, and you hated it. Switch with me." Oh, it's not fair.
Yeah, I know. It's true. It is a beautiful tropical paradise. Every day it's 85 and sunny. If it rains, you may get a shower for like 10 minutes and then it's done, you know. So I really did see some beautiful parts of the island that the tourists don't get to go to. So that was nice. And travel to all the other islands too.
And then does that set you up with a sense? Because I know you wrote a book about boot camp. What Letters from Boot Camp that I think you had self-published. Is that right, or am I making things up?
Yeah, no, that was the first book that I put out there. It was really just correspondence between me and my dad because he was like an old sailor. I was a young salt, and we wrote back and forth. So when I was in boot camp, like you basically don't sleep in boot camp. You know, you're on watch, you know, for a few hours at night, and then you go all day learning and you know, being tortured and all that stuff. And so I would write my letters home. Being a writer, I would write and write and write, you know, on my watch and not get caught. And my dad would write me back with advice. And after I got out, I thought, this is a really nice correspondence that tells of my experience now in the 80s and his experience in the 50s and how that came together. So, you know, I kind of did it for my family. I put that together, that book. But actually, this whole Navy experience is featured in my first book, A Human Element, with the aliens. And it's a lot of it is set, parts of it are set in Hawaii and Honolulu. And there's a photographer in the Navy character that's in the book as well. And I tell kids this when I go and do school visits, because this is what I've done a lot in my book writing, is when they say, "Oh, I don't know what to write about. I don't have any ideas." But I think we can take our real life material and fictionalize it into books. And that's how we can get ideas for that. That's what I've done with my settings. That's what I've done. You know, I have found that I have themes that run through my book because I'm an only child. I'm adopted. So that's something that really factors into my books. A lot of seeking belonging because I didn't feel like I belonged growing up, being adopted. Nobody else I knew was adopted. Nobody in my family was. So my feeling was that I didn't belong. And it took me a long time to get over that. So that really factors in my books, in my characters, that sense of not belonging, trying to find belonging. Where do you fit in? You know, all of that. So that it's all about identity, really. So that's kind of a theme that goes through my books.
Didn't you have to be mysteriously handed off at the edge of a cornfield as a baby? How's that story go?
Yeah, so my dad swears by this story. And I'm going to have to get him to tell me it again. So when my parents adopted me, this was the 60s, and they were living in Columbus, Ohio at the time, and they were older. My mom was like 40, which was like really frowned upon back then. And
it's not smiled upon now as an older parent.
right, exactly. But yeah, the 60s was a different world. So they had to go to this real small town in Ohio called Washington Courthouse. That's the actual name of the town. And they went there to adopt a child because that was the quickest way they could do it in this small town. And my mom, who was like a real hoot, total character, she passed away a few years ago, but she was this big, colorful woman. So they went to go to this small town, and the lady at the agency said, "Oh, we have 2 twin boys who are ready for adoption." So they came, they were going to go adopt these twin boys, and the dad, who was in jail, I guess, canceled at the last minute, said, "I'm not giving my children up. So my mom said, "All right, well, we came all this way. What else do you have?" You know, so literally, like I was like, a second thought there, a side story. So she's like, "Well, I have this little girl." So they came to see me, and they were like, "She's fine. Let's take her." But yes, she couldn't hand me over at that time. So they had to go outside the county line for some reason. I'm thinking, was I a black market baby? I don't know. And they met her at this cornfield outside the county line, and that's where she handed me off to them. So my dad swears by that
in a
story.
duffel bag on the road, and then over here in the corn, there's a baby.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, but what's really neat is, actually, like a few years ago, I connected with my foster mother because I was in an orphanage first, and then I was in a foster home because I was like a year old when my parents adopted me. And my foster mother, very sweet, sent me pictures of myself in the home, sent me my little baby shoes. So that was a nice connection to have. Yeah.